Great. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to be here with John La Valle. We will start this masterclass, Persuasion, right now. So, John, what can you tell about persuasion in this moment that we are living?
Well, I got to tell you, there's a whole lot of things going on right now. So, I know a lot of people are locked down. They're living in their homes. Can't go out very much except maybe to get some food, things like this. So, my always first question is, what do you want to do with persuasion? What does it mean for you to do something about persuasion? I think the important parts about noticing first, I think people are interested in knowing, well, how do I make money? I'm sitting home. I'm doing on the Zoom things like this. How do I make money? There are a couple of things. This is the time to get started and getting ready to go make money, because I think that this is going to be, I don't mean it's going to be completely over. I don't think it's going to be completely over all that fast, but I think it's going to be opening up. Countries are going to open up the economies very soon because the people are getting tired. People are getting tired of staying in their house. Now, if I talk about selling things, because I had some questions the other day on another call, and people are saying, "Oh, how do I sell things? Doing these things on Zoom." And my first answer to that is actually a question. I said, "Well, I don't know, because what's your advertising? What's your marketing like? You've got to be able to market." People think that sales is the most important part. It's not. Marketing is the most important part, because marketing is what gets people interested in your product or your service. So you've got to have good marketing first. Open the door and you bring them in, okay? Then you show them what you have. So I don't want to say silly things, but they're all interested in all the language patterns, how do you use the commands and all these things. That's not where the magic is. That's where the icing is. That's where you get to, you sharpen up your own skills. You've got to be able to format things inside your own brain, so that you have a good attitude during the whole thing, Even before it starts, you've got to be able to have, good skills. And then there's another question right now, since we're doing this thing with this virus, this corona thing, is people say, well, what about resilience? And Richard's talked about resilience sometimes a little bit. I'm going to tell you what I think is more important than resilience. Okay, it's what's called the ability to adapt. What's your adaptability? Because this is not new. These situations at this. We had 911. Okay, and the whole world was shut down for a couple of weeks. No airplanes flying around or anything. We had here in the U.S. we've had earthquakes, things. I'm sure they've been in other places of the world. Here, just in New Jersey and Florida, we had the hurricanes. New Jersey was shut for 2 weeks. So these things are not new. It's not about am I going to get through here? You're going to get through the situation if you have the ability to adapt the situation. Now that means a whole lot of different things to do. So the first part of persuading is really to persuade yourself. And I've told this to people the other day. I had some guy ask me a question. I was on another Zoom, and the question was, what can I do immediately starting tomorrow to increasing my business while I'm here doing this virus thing? And I said, well, I don't know if you're going to like the answer to this, but it's pretty straightforward. Get off your butt. Take your pajamas off. Get out of your pajamas, because people are hanging around in their pajamas all day long. They're lounging around, Get out of your pajamas. No, this is important stuff. People think it's not that important. And by the way, children too, get them out of their pajamas. I know they're going to play around. They're not going to school. They're supposed to be having some classes online. I don't know how well that works. Some of the parents are doing the educating. Let the children get dressed as if they're going to school when they're going to go to school online. Now, let me tell you how I got to this point. When I first started my business, I'm going back now, 30 years or so, whatever it is. And I was at home. I was a consultant. And I just started my job, blah, 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 started my consulting business. Well, actually, I left the company and was really starting my consulting business. I'd been doing it for a couple of years before that, just to get it started. And I was home maybe a week or 2 weeks, and a friend of mine, a consultant, called and said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm doing okay." He said, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "I just want to know what you're doing today." I said, "Well, I don't know. I got some time, probably going to, chit chat a little bit with some friends and things like that." And he said, this could be one of the most important questions that anybody's asked you for a long time, John. And I said, "Okay, what is it?" And he said, "How do you know the difference between when you're at home and when you're working out of your house, right?" He said, "Yeah, we have a home office, we call it." He said, "So how do you know the difference between when you're at home and when you're at work?" And I thought, that is a great question. And I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, let me get a story." I said, "Sure, go ahead. I like stories." And he said, "When I first went into my business, I was home. I saw a beautiful day outside. I said, you know what? Nice day. I'm going to go cut my grass, cut the grass, trim the hedges, bushes. Then I'd wash my car." He said, "By the time I got finished," he said, "it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm tired." So I'd go inside, I'd have a beer, turn on the television. And then I'd realize I didn't do anything all day to build my business. And I said, "Yeah, that's happening," because it's happened to me just in the last week or two. Not every day, but he said, "Well, what I decided to do, somebody told me to do this." And I thought, okay, good. He said, "I get up, I jump in the shower, I get dressed for work." He says, "I actually put on a tie and a jacket and I leave. I go out and I go to breakfast. And then I come back and I go into my office at home. And I make my calls, I do my, whatever, take care of all these things." He said, "At lunchtime, I put my jacket back on, I go out for lunch. I might meet with somebody and have a hamburger. I don't go to the bar and have a drink. I don't do that." He said, "Then after lunch, I come back home and I go back to work. I take my jacket off, I hang it up in my office. I check my calendar, my diary. Do I have to make more phone calls?" He said, "Then at 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock, I put my jacket on, I leave work. I go back down to the little diner or the cafe, have a cup of coffee or a Coca-Cola." He said, "And after that, then I go home and I'm home. And I take my clothes off, I put my housewear on, my shorts, my gym, my lounging pants, whatever. And if I can cut the grass, I go cut the grass. If not, I wait till Saturday, I cut the grass." Now, the whole time he's telling me this, I'm thinking, this is fantastic, but I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this every day, because I learned NLP. And I know that if I could try it on just like this, I can program myself to do this. Now, most of you know who I am. Most of you should know anyway. For those of you who do know me, I'm up at around usually 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning.
Yes, it's true. Today he was answering me my mails, and I was, what? This guy doesn't sleep. I know, it's true.
I got an email from Miguel this morning, because I went and checked something out, and I tapped him, and he said, "Don't you ever sleep?" He said, "Well, yeah, but I do. I sleep weird hours. I can go to take a nap in the afternoon and get back up and work. And Kathleen too, she works all strange hours at night. You might be able to call sometimes 10 o'clock at night and she may pick up the phone. But we change our phone hours now, so that doesn't happen all the time. Well, my point is this: there's lots of things you can do, because the longer you sit in your pajamas, the harder it's going to be for you to get off your butt and go out and start doing other things when it comes time to do that. The children are not necessarily going to want to go to school. The parents are going to want them to go to school, but I don't know that the children are going to want to go. So if you're going to have a classroom time with them, everybody get dressed like you're going to school. Okay, make a game out of it with the children if you have to. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. You're in your home. Make videos of it and put it on YouTube and stuff. I've seen some crazy videos over the last 2 months. People with their children doing crazy things, and the children love doing this too. You can learn all kinds of things this way too. You get to know your children better. But this is only the beginning of persuasion. The first most important part about doing anything about persuasion or influence is that you have to be in a good state. You have to be in a very good internal state, your emotions. Now, unlike most places, where they teach NLP, we add things in there that are important for NLP, but they've never really been addressed because most people would think we're, some kind of crazy scientist. Well, they probably think some of that anyway. The part I'm talking about is neurochemistry. Okay, we're making all these neurotransmitters in our brains. Most of them are good, some not so good, and these are the things that determine our emotions, our state of mind, our attitude, everything. So if you can learn how to run your own neurology as opposed to worrying about how can I persuade someone, I'm going to tell you a secret about persuasion. My wife, Kathleen, okay, she's great. I tell people, if you're going to call my office and ask about a program and a seminar, you better have your credit card with you, because my wife is going to, by the time she's finished with you, you're going to want to sign up for the seminar.
You are passing the card.
And the reason is because she doesn't try to sell you anything, okay? She is so excited about what we do. And if you're excited about your product or your service, that's okay. Everybody tries to shove the information, down your throat and all these things. That's not really the approach. So let me start a little bit with persuasion. Okay, and I think about persuasion, I think about sales and selling and influencing. Teachers have to persuade children too, First thing I tell the salespeople when they come in and I talk to them. And I worked with companies, by the way. I've done a few different companies where I've gone in and trained their salespeople, and I've told them all the same thing. Take your PowerPoint presentation and put it away. If you're going to go in and you're going to sit down with a prospective client, a potential client, and you're going to show them your brochures, you've just wasted your time and their time, because you haven't got enough information from them in order to know how to exactly present the information that you want to present to them. And if you already got brochures in PowerPoint, well, you've already formatted it, but you don't know how to format it for this one particular person. So what I like to do, first of all, is let me address a couple of things in the meantime. People say, well, how can I do this over the phone? Yeah, you can do it over the phone, depending on what you're selling. If you're selling, big items, I would say don't sell it over the phone, because mostly, and I'm a believer in this. The only reason for a telephone call, unless they're little ticket items, small things you're going to sell or whatever, the only reason, the best reason anyway, is to get a face-to-face appointment. Because first of all, if you're on the phone with the person and they don't like what you have to say, they can just say thanks and hang up the phone. But if you're sitting in front of them in their office, it's going to be very difficult for them. They're not going to pick you up and throw you out, although that has happened from time to time. So my first thing is, you want to be face-to-face with the person. Then look at this Zoom thing. Now I can see Miguel. I see him with his microphone. I can see him from his chest up. Now you could probably see me. You could probably see me maybe from here up or so. I don't know. And you can't see my hands unless I go like this. You can't see my legs. You can't see my feet. You can't see me wiggling my toes. You can't see any of that stuff. So you don't know how to take all the information from me that's even nonverbal. So that's why I say if you can get the face-to-face, that's really the best thing to do, is get the face-to-face. And then the next thing to do is you've got to really collect information from them, but not until you have rapport. Now, the rapport thing is not that critical unless you're really great at it and it's natural for you. But the easiest thing to do is ask them about their business. Get them talking about themselves. You don't have to ask specific questions. Listen, I know there's these things out there that go, well, you can use these meta program questions and all this stuff. I don't recommend it. I do not recommend asking those kind of questions because they're not germane to what's going on in the situation while you're sitting there with the person. They have nothing to do with it. They know you're profiling them. So you don't want to profile somebody, at least not overtly. So if I were to sit down with you and I'd say, so tell me about your business. How did your business start? And believe me, I'm going to start keeping track of whatever comes out naturally. I'm not going to probe them and prod them with these things, these meta programs. They're valuable, but meta programs are valuable, but not when you ask the question to elicit them. It's much better when they come out naturally. That way you don't have to ask the questions. Now, they're giving you information. They're going to tell you the things that are important to them anyway. They're going to say, oh, my great-great-grandfather started this business. And you can respond and say, really? Oh my gosh, how long ago was that? and they'll give you more information. They'll also tell you about how the quality, you know, the whole situation around the quality of their product came to be, you know, things like this. They're very proud, by the way. So depending, even if they work in a company, and if you get to sit with a vice president or a director or a middle manager, they're proud of the position they've gotten themselves into in the company, because to them, they've worked their way up. You know, they worked hard at it. I'm not so sure they all worked hard at it, but point is they're in a position that they're proud to have. So feel free to ask them those questions. Say, how long have you been in this job? What other things have you done in the company? And they'll give you more information. Without information, you're not going to know where to go next. It's that simple. Everybody wants to shove the product in your face and say, I can get you 20 of these for this much money and blah, blah, blah. That's okay, but that's not real persuasion. You know, that's hard selling to me. And I don't propose doing it that way. Matter of fact, I've never done it that way. So that's the basic element of where I would begin with anything about persuasion. So there's lots and lots you can learn. I learn a lot about persuasion. You know, watch and listen to waiters and waitresses when you get to go back to a restaurant, that is.
Yes.
And yeah, it's great. The really good ones, I'm going to tell you something. I'll tell you some things about NLP most people don't tell you. In order to really get it, you know, people think, oh, give me the magic technique. Well, there is no magic technique. If there's a magic technique, it's called live NLP. My life is NLP. I think I do anyway. I don't think, oh, now I have to use my NLP. To me, it's just a natural thing. It's about developing your brain, programming your own brain base, or reprogramming or formatting it, you know, however you want to think about it. Because, you know, I hear people say things like, well, I use my NLP at work, but I don't use it at home. And I'm thinking, how could you not use NLP at home? This is about language, both verbal and non-verbal language. You know, yesterday I was on a call and I told them, I said, you know, my son is 34 or 35, and we never taught him NLP. But he would come to the seminars when he was 3 or 4 or 5 years old. He would sit in the back room and play with his toys. And therefore, he picked it up. We'd be watching videotapes. We'd be listening to cassette tapes sometimes of different people, blah, blah, blah. And he'd be in the back seat of the car listening. We didn't take him to seminars and go, here, you're going to go learn NLP. And he's great at it. He's great at it. Let me tell you what the bottom line is about being good at NLP. Can you get the result or not? If you can get the result, you're probably really good. And I'm not going to say that you're necessarily good at NLP, but if I listened to you and watched you enough, I could probably track all your patterns and say, where did you train in NLP? And you'd say, I never trained in NLP. Well, that means you're natural at it. So people can learn these things and become natural at it, but it takes work. It's not like they think you're going to sit in a seminar, you're going to do one exercise, and there you go. Now you know NLP. I don't think so. This is another part of adaptability. You know, how easy is it for you to adapt to a situation? So, you know, when 911 hit, you know, everybody was shocked. And the first thing I thought was, oh boy, what are we going to do now? You know, and I meant, what are we going to do to survive if this is that serious of a situation? And I started taking steps myself with my family, okay, so that we could survive the situation, because nobody knew how long it was going to last. It's the same as this virus thing. And by the way, this is not the only virus thing that's ever happened. There have been a couple of really big ones even before this, but they didn't make such a big deal about it. Maybe the internet wasn't as big as it is now. I don't know. And it is serious, by the way. I'm not trying to say it's not a serious problem, because the serious part about this problem is nobody understands this one virus. So I'm not trying to make light of it. So the question would be, you know, what do you need to do to be adaptable anytime anything can happen? I've been in situations where I didn't know what to do. I had a surgery on one of my knees. I was in a cast. I was driving, and I went past a lake, and I saw this kid, you know, go down on a sled in the wintertime, go into the lake, and he broke through the ice, and this kid is in the ice cold water at night. And I just happened to see it off the side of the road as I was driving. And I thought, I got to save this kid. We didn't have cell phones back then. So I had to adapt to the situation, because I knew this kid would drown within minutes, because it was freezing cold, except it wasn't cold enough because he broke through the ice. So I managed to save this kid. I don't think myself as a hero. I think myself as well, I was adaptable enough that I knew how to crawl across the ice without putting all my weight in one place, blah, 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 blah. And I pulled this kid out of the ice. There've been a number of situations like that, you know, not just with the ice, but where I've had to adapt just immediately, right on the spot, you know, because of something that was happening. And I wasn't trained for it, but I thought, what do I have to do? And I started thinking about my own resources. So you can do the same things. This is the time to learn to be adaptable. If you're going to do any training at all, I always recommend to people, you know, I tell people, they go, I'm going to go to New York City. I go, great. New York's a great city. Not right now. I wouldn't go right now. I'd wait a little bit. Okay. But I've always told people, I go, listen, when you go to New York City, okay, you have to know something. I know it's not going to be you're not going to know the difference between the real New Yorkers who were born there and the people who moved in. You're not going to really know the difference, except the people who were born there, if they see you looking around like you're going, you know, you're trying to figure out where to get to someplace, they're going to stop and ask you, are you lost? Where are you trying to go? And they will tell you how to get there. They might even take you there if it's only another block away, but those are the real New Yorkers. Now, see, what they have in New York is that if they're born there, is they have what we call situational awareness. They're always looking around. And they walk fast. It seems like they don't know where they're going, or they're walking so fast they just go right through everybody. But the fact of the matter is they're paying attention to what's going on in the street. And that's very important. Situational awareness is another way of thinking about it, so that you can collect enough information about what's going on. And you've got to have adaptability. You've got to be prepared if something's going to happen, that you can do something. You can take some kind of an action, even if it's to turn around and run and hide in a building. I don't care what it is. But it's not going to be where you freeze and go, and that's that.
Okay.
So there's
I have a question for you, because
Yeah,
you have a good sentence on your Facebook web page. You say, your brain works faster than you think. And this is a registered sentence from you. So how can we improve our brain, and how can we put him working faster and a faster speed and get more results?
Well, depending on what it is, all right. Let's consider this. Let's say if it's something physical, that's going to require practice. If it's something mental, it's going to require practice. Here's the part that's most important. Your brain works faster than you think, and that means sometimes people take too long to think, and you can always tell if they're taking too long to think because their eyes will go slow. You know, do these kind of things while they're thinking, and that's not such a bad thing. It's just that if you program yourself, your own brain, that stay out of your head pretty much. You know, there are times to go inside and think about things. There are times to go inside and meditate and do all those kind of things. But then there are times to stay awake and out here. This is where the action is. The action's outside your head, not inside your head. So you got to keep your eyes open, your ears open, all your senses open, so you can pay attention to what's going on. If you need to learn a skill, because here's the part that people miss with NLP. Most people, they don't get this part. You go to a class, you learn some things, you put them in your brain, you practice out a little bit, or sometimes you read a book, or maybe you watch a seminar. Even now, you're listening to me talk about things, and maybe it's going in your brain. But if you don't output it, then it's going to stay in your brain. You're not going to have a skill necessarily to test. Like if I said to you again, I said, one of the first things you ought to do if you want to start building some kind of a business when this thing is over is first thing is to get off your butt. Now that sounds great. I don't know how many of you are going to get off your butt tomorrow morning when you wake up. But for those who do wake up tomorrow and go, you know what? I'm getting off my butt. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to put some clothes on. I'm going to get out of my pajamas. And, then that would tell me that you're practicing what you've learned anyway. So the important part is because it goes like this. We bring the information in through our five senses and we process it. We store it in our brain. Okay. And then we want to retrieve it. We retrieve it from our brain. We recollect it. We transderivational search. We collect it again. And then we re-represent the information in our brain. Then what? How do we output it? So I'm going to give you an example of this. I have a few of them actually. But here's one. So I've been in meetings for companies, and we sit in a meeting, and they're going to make a decision about doing something. And the doing something, as far as I can tell, is going to produce a result. So I asked the group, and I say, who's going to make sure this happens? You know? And they all look at each other like, well, whose turn is it? Finally, someone says, okay, fine, I'll do it. I go, so you're going to take care of and make sure and be responsible for making sure everybody in this room is going to do their part on time, completely, so that this project is going to be finished when? And I wait. And they end up saying something like, well, I don't know, sometime next year. So when next year? Sometime in the first quarter. Which month in the first quarter? February. When in February? I don't know, the first week. Which day? And I keep asking them these questions. And I finally get them to say, oh, Monday, February 1st. And I go, what time? And they say, oh, man, okay, 11 o'clock. I say, okay. Say the whole thing. So it's going to be done when? And they go, what? I just told you. I go, no. Say, I'm going to make sure that everyone's done their job, completed their part of the project, so that on February 1st at 11 o'clock in the morning next year, I will be sure to deliver this project totally complete and executed. And they say, well, you're trying to put words in my mouth. And I say, no, I'm trying to get them to come out. Because if they don't output it, that means it's not finally encoded. Doesn't mean final it can't change, but it means finally encoded. Ladies, guys, listen, the ladies already know this, because they say to the guy, you never tell me you love me. And you say, well, I do. And they go, well, say it. And the guy says, I just did. And you say, no, you didn't. Say, I love you. They go, I just did. No, you didn't. Say, I love you. They go, I do. But you don't say it. Say the words. And they go, I just did, honey. No. Say the word. The guys know that once the words come out, it's a commitment. Okay? But this is the same thing about making a commitment for yourself about doing things and outputting what you learn. The fact that people are afraid means to me sometimes they're afraid to make a mistake. Well, I got to tell you this. I've made plenty of mistakes. I cannot even think about all the mistakes I've made. As I got older, I started to learn that it was easy to learn from the mistake by thinking immediately, what can I do? What can I do to make sure I don't do this same mistake again, at least not the same way? So when I do this activity again, it'll be different. Now that requires I put something in my brain, a strategy in there, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes people have asked me, well, how do I collect all this information on the go? And I think, well, this is easy to do. I don't bring, first of all, I don't bring an iPad with me. Those things, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. I have 3 of them. I hardly use them that much. I might look at them to look at the weather, maybe to check in emails or something, you know? Because to me in a company, even I know the younger generation's using them. I got that part. I always brought in little index cards with me, little white cards, probably about like that big. I don't know if you can see that, but, and this high and that wide. And I would just put it in my jacket pocket with a couple of pens. And I would just jot down. I would always tell the potential customer, I go, do you mind if I take some notes? They're absolutely not. Take all the notes you want. What do you think I was writing down? I was writing down the things that were important to them. I was writing down their accessing cues. I was writing down if they had a favorite representational system. I was writing down if they had made things important to them, which means they were telling me their criteria. They were telling me the things that, you know, sometimes you ask someone, especially in a company, or it doesn't matter if it's just a company, say, so what do you want? And they go, well, here's what I don't want. And they list out all the things they don't want. Write them down. You're going to need them later. So that's what I did. And I would just jot stuff down. Now, having done that, and I started learning doing that by attending meetings actually in a company I was working for at the time. So I would go to these meetings and I would jot these things down. And I would keep a list of the names who was in the meeting. I'd even make little columns down the card. You know, I'm going to track this, and this. And people would say, what are those notes you're writing down? I go, that's my own version of shorthand. Don't worry about it. And what I was doing, I was learning a couple of things. One, I was learning to keep track. 2, I was learning about the people in the meeting. Okay, because I would write their names down. I also would do this back then. I'd watch really good talk shows, not scripted programs where they're pre-written and all this stuff. And the kind of show where the host would ask very few questions and let the guest do all the talking. You know, one of my favorite ones back then was Johnny Carson. Now, it's been a long time ago. Now I'm not even going to figure out how old I might be. Johnny Carson, he would ask a couple of questions. And by the way, Johnny Carson was great at firing off anchors for the audience. Because he didn't have to say anything funny. Sometimes he would say one line that was funny, and he'd do these different faces. One of his faces, he'd go like that, okay? And so if the guest said something that was kind of funny, but maybe the audience wasn't getting it yet, Johnny Carson would look at the audience and go, and they'd all laugh. And then he'd ask for more information. And the more information would be, well, you're kidding, really? What happened when you did that? What happened after that part? And he'd get them talking again. See, this is all part of practicing about gathering information. It's really not all that difficult. You know, you got to relax, you know, make sure you're in good rapport with the person and get them talking about themselves. You got to have the information in order to know what to do next. So, yeah. You got another question out there?
Yes. If we were gathering information and able to adapt on the spot, what are the effective components of the vehicle in which my glasses, feed this back and persuade people to take action? For example, could they be story Dutch, anchoring their values, feeding feedback, and buying strategies?
Yep. Okay. So here are a couple of things. In what I teach people to do is really kind of easy. It does require listening. Right? That's the only part that's you know, I don't know. I guess for people it's a little bit of a challenge. But if you can't listen, you're in trouble. So what I like to do is when I first, and remember, I'm categorizing everything, you know, as people are speaking. So if I were to talk to somebody and they said to me, you know, tell me about your business. And they said, oh, my great-great-great-grandfather started this business and it was passed down through the generations and blah, blah, blah. And I would log a couple of things. One is I would log the fact that their great-great-great-grandfather started this business. And I might say, even ask more questions about that because I'm going to use that information later on. Sometimes I might say to a potential customer, you know, I might be interested in their business in more depth and say, well, how many employees do you have working here anyway? And that's going to give me more information. I've never had anybody refuse to answer me that question. So what I'm getting from them then is I'm getting some content and basically their value information, you know, highly valued information, or their criteria. So let's say they say, well, we got about 300 employees here. I go, wow, 300. How many different jobs could there be? And they go, oh, well, there's about 8 different jobs and blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, I'm already starting the format in my mind. Okay, so they have 8 different jobs, 300 or 400 different people. So now I can say, so how many of those people are like in lower management? Or how many people are like, you know, actually the workers, the people who do the work, those kind of things. And I'm just going to ask those kind of questions because I'm gathering that information. My favorite thing to do is when I start moving into the persuading mode, let's say, okay? And I don't care if it's selling or I don't care if it's teaching. I don't care if it's, you know, teachers teaching children. When I gather 3 nice pieces of information, I'm going to repeat those nice 3 pieces of information back, and I'm not going to change them. Okay, I'm not going to change their words. Remember this. You know, in the book Persuasion Engineering, I quoted something. I wrote something out. It said,
"Here."
Yeah, that book. Thank you so much. That's the one. Yes, thank you. That in the book it said, you know, I don't believe that paraphrasing is a good thing. As a matter of fact, because I know they teach it. A lot of people teach paraphrasing. To me, paraphrasing is an insult to the other person. Because basically what they're asking you to do is change it around a little bit and make it make sense to the person who's speaking so that they think, that they feel as if you understand them. Well, that doesn't work that way. So if I said to you, if I said to you, so what do you want here? You know, and you said, oh, I want A, B, and C. And I go, oh, I'm trying to paraphrase. Okay, so let me see. So basically what you're saying is, if you could have D and along with F and G, that would do it for you, right? That's not going to work because it's not A, B, and C. I'm trying to keep this real simple for you. Now, why is that? this is so much of a basic element of rapport. It's not even funny. When people output that information, they've already got that synaptic trail already lit up. Okay, let's say the trail, all right? The roadways are already lit up. You want to send the information back down a different roadway? I don't think so. Think about it, that's crazy. So I tell you what, I did a training for the U.S. in a country here in the early 90s. Was the second largest new home builder in the U.S. I was training their salespeople. And the president or the vice president came to me one day and said, hey, how do I know this stuff works? I said, you don't. It's training. Because there are too many other variables in, deciding how come your sales increased or whatever happened. You got the environment, you got the mortgage rates of the day, you got, we going to war with somebody else, all these things. What's the consumer confidence level? And so you don't really know if what I'm teaching you guys works. I said, unless you want to set up a specific experiment and we could test it out. And he said, I have an idea. I said, what is it? He said, how about if I give you my worst sales guy? I'm thinking, who's your worst sales guy? Why is he still in your company? I didn't say that to him. And he said, what do I give you my worst sales guy? And if you can get him to sell something, then I'll know this stuff works. And I said, that's a sucker bet. That's an easy bet. I said, I have a better bet. Let's try this one. Why don't you give me the best one you have? Give me your best sales guy. Give me the best one. And if I can increase his sales or help him increase his sales by what's a good percentage for you these days? This was around 1991 or two, somewhere around there. He said, I'll take 10%. In today's economy, he said, I'll take a 10% increase in sales. That would be great. I said, okay. So give me your best sales guy, best one you have. And if I can increase his sales, if I don't increase his sales by at least 10% based on what I'm going to teach him to do, then I will fulfill my 5-year contract with you for free. But if I do increase it by at least 10%, then you pay me double. And he said, oh man, listen, I can't make a bet like this. It's the company's money. It's illegal for me to make bets like this. He said, but I like the idea. I said, okay, I'll do the idea. So he gave me this kid, I think he was 28 years old. This kid was good, hot shot. This kid was already selling, are you ready? $7 million a year in sales. That's pretty good. New home business, lousy economy, no problem. So I worked with this kid for a couple of days and I watched him in action. I learned a couple of things from him too. Not NLP, well, sort of NLP related, I guess, but some things about time, and the appreciation of the other person's time. So I taught this guy a couple of things. Now this is interesting. Then when he went back the following year, are you ready? He went from 7, do the math. He went from 7 to 17 million. Okay. That's a lot more than 10%.
Yes.
And I thought, wow, this is, man, don't I get double now? I mean, that kind of thing. But what I found out was his sales went up, but the other guy's sales went down. So it's not like the company's sales increased so much. It's because this young guy, he would take people who would come in and he would ask them the question. They go, hi, I'm looking for a home. And he goes, okay, what do you do? Oh, I'm an engineer. You're an engineer? You go see Bob. Bob works with the engineers. That's what he would do. And if you were a computer programmer, same thing. So what do you do? I'm a computer programmer. Oh, you are? Really? Go see Bob. Bob loves working with the computer people. Go ahead. And I thought, this is crazy. Well, this kid, he intuitively picked up that he just didn't get along with engineers or computer people. But it went a little bit beyond that. You see, those people who were brilliant, by the way, most of them, okay? And this was a learning thing for me. I'm like, wow, this is so interesting. What is it? And he did not like to work with, are you ready for this? Auditory people. Oh. And mathematics and computer programming, okay, are auditory activities because they're mathematics, all right? They might have a visual layout of something when they engineer something out. You ask a computer programmer, do they talk it through as they're building a program? Do they do it the words in their head first? Okay, they all do. So what he started doing when I explained the thing to him about auditory, because he was a highly visual kid, he really was. So I taught him about auditory. He started practicing more auditory. And then when people came in, he'd go, what do you do? And I don't even know why he continued to ask the question, because he started talking to everybody who came in. It's how he started to discriminate. And they go, I'm a computer engineer. I'm a computer programmer. You go, great, great, great. So what are you looking for? Because they also, you see, the auditory people typically, this is not a rule, okay? This is like a big generalization. They like details. And this kid didn't like details. I got him to like details. So his sales went up, but the other guys in the department in that area went down because he didn't send so many to him, to the other guys. So, but that was a good lesson, because that told me that the NLP stuff worked for a very specific reason in that case, you see? So therefore he was able to sell to just about anybody who walked in. And again, he went from 7 to 17 million. I was shocked at that number. I've had taken a few different people like that, not doing the same thing for the same reason, but basically fine tuning them.
You already talk about sales and sales process, but I have one question that is on my head. On the sales process, what is the most important behavior or skill that a salesperson should have to be a great salesperson or to have good results?
Well, the first thing you need really is a good sense of humor. Okay. You got to have a good sense of humor. If you're gonna do sales and stuff, you have to have a sense of humor. Every successful consultant that I know, so I'm talking about really successful people, they have a good sense of humor, and you can always tell it's a good sense of humor, because if you made not even a joke, because I do make the distinction between jokes and humor. Jokes poke fun at people and classes of people, sexes, races, things like that. Those are jokes. That's not necessarily humor. Humor is where something's there in the language pattern. Okay. That they can detect, and if they have a good sense of humor, they laugh about it. Okay, and or they'll chuckle, and now or maybe it's in their pattern. So, I think it's important to have a good sense of humor. Not that you have to be funny all the time, but it's good to be light in your conversations with people and not be so so stiff and so professional, things like that. Most people would tell you I'm probably the most unprofessional guy, because I don't walk down the aisle and bow down. I meet everybody at the same level that I think I'm at, and that's that they're humans. Yes. And I don't care if they're the president of a big company or not. I think a sense of humor is important. Yeah. So, yeah.
How can our beliefs influence our sales process? Because, if you believe in one thing, you can get one result, but if you believe in another, you can get another result. So how can we change our beliefs and basically use NLP on the sales process?
It's interesting. Yeah, your beliefs definitely have a part, okay? But the question I would have is beliefs about what? Now, first of all, you have to think about a few things. Beliefs are conscious activities. Mm-hmm. So in order because I've had people say, I want to change a belief about something. Well, that's conscious. That means you already know what it is. So just go do it. Just change what you're doing, change how you're doing it. Now, some people say, well, I don't believe, that's what I don't believe, okay? I don't believe I'm confident enough, or I'm just not confident enough. But then they go, well, so can I change that belief? Well, first of all, it's not a real true, die in the wool belief, because you don't have no confidence in every part of your life. So there are times when you are confident. So now we're going to get down to, when are you not confident about something? So I had a guy the other day again, in one of these webinar things, said, how do I get to be confident about my skill level and my knowledge? I said, go use it. Because he wasn't using it. I said, well, I get into a situation and all of a sudden, I don't know, I can't, I just can't, I'm not sure, I start doubting myself. I'm not sure I have the skills. I go, I wouldn't have gone into the situation if I thought that. It's very simple. And the best way, he said, well, can I ease into it? I said, no, just jump right in. You got to jump in. So I'm going to tell you another story about that. Many years ago, when I was first working along with Richard Bandler, I was on staff. We were running the Like I was doing like small group trainings in his big seminars, and I was teaching language patterns and blah, blah, blah. And he said to me one day, he said, "Hey, John, I hear you're pretty good at language patterns." And I said, "Well, I'm okay." He's, no. I hear people saying they attended your small group thing. You're really good at it. You teach it really well. How about you teach it this afternoon? And I'm thinking, first of all, this was a big honor. Richard doesn't hand his microphone over to just anybody, right? It's one thing to staff and help and assist, but it's another thing for him to say, "Here, get on stage this afternoon and you teach this." And I thought, holy moly. Well, I actually said worse than that. And I said to him, I said, "No, Richard, I got a couple of things going on in this afternoon. Maybe tomorrow's a better day. Can I do it tomorrow?" Me thinking, I brought my books with me. I had them up in my bedroom in the hotel. I'm going to look through my books all night. I'm going to be studying everything. And I said to him, I said, "But tomorrow would be better, okay?" He said, "Okay. All right, tomorrow?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Okay, tomorrow afternoon." I said, "Thank you." And I went and I sat down in the back of the room, and he gets up in the afternoon, puts his microphone on and says, "John La Valle's coming up this afternoon. I'm going to teach language patterns. Come on up here, John." And I knew what it felt like to be thrown in to the water with the sharks. Now, did I fumble? No. The very first thing I did was, oh my God. And he's like, come on up here. And I just went right up there. I was used to being on stage. That wasn't the problem. I started playing drums when I was 5 years old. I was playing in bands by the time I was 12 or 13. I was playing in bars and nightclubs by the time I was 16. So it wasn't unusual for me to be in front of people. But it was to be tested by the language patterns that I wasn't going to study for that night until Richard said, "John's going to do this right now." So that was a lesson. People say, "Well, what did you learn from that?" Well, not to believe Richard. I go, "Oh yeah, well, I knew not to believe him after that. That was no problem. If it had to do with people doing something that was going to be good for them, that I knew." What I learned was sometimes if you know you got the skills and you know you got the talent, you know you got the knowledge, jump in there, baby. Just jump right in there and go for it. If you think about it too much, you'll come up with all these different excuses and reasons why not. So that's part of it. That's a big step. And I know a lot of people who are not that confident in their own level of whatever they think, skills, knowledge. I think about, when you were young learning to ride a bicycle, you probably had those little training wheel things on the back of the bicycle. And I don't know about you, but, I didn't have the training wheels thing. So my dad took me on in a place where there wasn't a lot of cars, and he'd run alongside of me holding the seat, kind of thing. And then next thing I knew, he wasn't there. He did this for a few times. He did it a couple of times again. And then we go out one time, and I think, yeah, it's no problem. Dad's got me. He's got my back, so to speak. He's got me by the seat of the bicycle. And sure enough, man, I'm pedaling away, and I'm going really fast. I didn't know Dad could run this fast. Well, Dad wasn't there. He just let the bicycle go. I'm sure that's happened to you. Some of you anyway, most of you probably. So sometimes you just got to jump right in there and do it. That's it. That's how you build your confidence up. Otherwise, how are you going to know? And then people say, "What if I make a mistake?" I say, count on it. Count on it. You're going to make mistakes. Build something inside your brain where you can recuperate really, really fast. Really fast. I did a thing in New York City once for a group, and Miguel was there, and I'm thinking, well, my wife's going, what are you talking about today? I said, I don't know. I don't know. They wanted me to come out and do a little presentation for the group of people and things. And I thought, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. And so we're walking into the place, and we're walking down to where the room is. And I look up, and there's all these portraits painted more like caricatures. And almost every person in the caricature had on a hat. And I thought, I got it. I know what I'm going to talk about. My wife said, "You're going to talk about hats?" No, I'm going to talk about how you can use your hat to communicate different things. And that's what I did. I talked about a few other things in there as well. But I didn't plan on what I was going to talk about the whole time. But people say, "Oh, I have to write this out. I have to steward my speech. Oh my God, what am I going to do?" I don't know what I'm going to do. Most of my talks are basically off the cuff, as we say. I don't plan on them. I don't sit up at night and think, I don't do that. I just don't do that. And I talked about hats.
Great. It was very good.
The good one? Yeah. But real quick, I'll just give you a couple things. So I told him, I said, I want to talk about Frank Sinatra, because I know about Frank Sinatra because my dad knew his mom. And Frank Sinatra, by the first time he had a hat on, by the way, in a photograph, he was 7 years old. And his hat was on straight, it was like this, just on straight. But he actually went and learned a couple of things from some guy who said, you got to learn about your hat. What do you mean? He said, well, if you put your hat different ways, you wear it different ways, you communicate something different. You wear it like this, it means something different. It means something different like this, it means something different. You wear it like that, different if you wear it like that. So you got to wear your hat different ways depending on what you want to communicate. And I thought that was enough information, but I knew about this when I was probably in my teens, maybe early 20s, because like I said, my dad knew Frank Sinatra's mom. Same thing with a pinky ring. They told him how to wear the pinky ring in different ways, depending on what he wanted to communicate. So there's all kinds of things in order to influence people with, and it's not always verbal. So you got to jump in and just try things out. It sounds kind of crazy, but that's what you do. You just jump in. I don't know why people wait.
Okay. How can we transform habits? Because there are people with bad habits that are doing bad things, but I know that on NLP, and I know to use these techniques. How can we change transform the habits and create good habits?
Well, there's an interesting thing. First of all, you have to know it's a bad habit, and you have to know you're doing a bad habit.
Yes.
Because most people don't know they're doing a bad habit. So that's the first part. We demonstrate when we teach some class, we teach there are 4 different steps to really learning some things. And one of those is called unconscious incompetence. And that means something you're not doing, you're doing something really terrible, bad, poor performance, whatever. And guess what? You don't know it. And then the next step is somebody tells you about it, now you know it. And the next step is, okay, now you learn something to do differently with it. And that's called conscious competence, as long as you can do it right. And then if you do it enough times, then you learn that there's going to be unconscious competence, which means you don't have to think about it. Now, that's a big overgeneralized category of stuff. But I'm going to tell you, the first part is most people are not aware that they're doing something. So in comes this thing called feedback. And so feedback goes like this. Feedback, first of all, to me, and I've coined this phrase years and years ago, in the 80s, early 80s. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. If you can't deal with feedback, then you're probably in the wrong business anyway, no matter what you're doing. Now, a part of that is really dependent on how the feedback is delivered. So that means that there are ways of telling someone, because they have to get to that point if they don't know. I use the example, like if you were, if you had an Uncle Louie, and Uncle Louie, he sings at everybody's wedding. He grabs the microphone, but everybody goes, oh no, Uncle Louie's going to sing, because Uncle Louie doesn't sing that good. So Uncle Louie gets the microphone, he goes, oh, right? And he does this at every wedding, and everybody lets him get up and do this with the microphone because no one has told Uncle Louie, you really can't sing that well. Now, they don't want to hurt Uncle Louie's feelings, of course, but either they're going to tell him or they're going to put up with Uncle Louie singing at the rest of the weddings. It's that simple. So the thing about feedback is calling somebody a name is not feedback. Okay. And if I said to somebody's Uncle Louie, you sound like crap. That's not feedback, really. If I said to him, you're a shit singer or a lousy singer or something like that, that's not feedback. You've got to be able to stay with the behavior. You've got to give information about the behavior. And then once the person knows that, here's the hard part, it's their choice if they want to do something about it or not. That's really important. Okay, people say, how can I program this person to stop doing this? I go, do they want to do it? Do they want to change it? I don't know. Well, then you have no business even thinking about it. Richard has, I don't know if he's still around, but he had a friend. The guy was agoraphobic, okay? And he would build little electronic things for Richard from his house, and Richard would go pick them up and, pay him whatever. And the guy never went out of his house, and he would have food delivered, meals delivered, and everything. And he'd be telling a story in class, and someone once said to him, Richard, why don't you fix the guy? Rich said, oh, because I asked him if he wanted to change this, and he said no. He was quite happy. He had plenty of money, by the way. That wasn't a problem at all. He liked living at home. He didn't want to leave the house. He didn't have any particular fears. He might have, but we didn't know about him. but he wasn't interested in changing. So whose business is it? So if the person doesn't want to change a bad habit, then guess what? It's none of your business to go change the bad habit, unless they want to do something about it. So now the other thing that happens is if the person wants to change the bad habit, you've got to give them, or unless they don't know, or if they don't know what it is, you've got to give them a replacement behavior if they don't know what to do. A lot of times people just don't know what to do. Remember, most people are doing the best that they know how to do at the time they're doing it. That sounds kind of, cheap way out of it, but in fact, that's what happens, right? I know a guy that when he was younger, if somebody gave him a lot of trouble, he'd punch somebody. He'd just flat out punch him. And sometimes I'd see this happen. I go, that guy, he didn't even deserve that punch. Some guys are right, they deserved it, but they didn't really deserve it. And I talked to him one time. I said, do you know that sometimes when somebody, hits you the wrong way or says something the wrong way, you just punch them? Now, believe it or not, this guy said, yeah, but I don't know I'm doing it when I do it. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I black out. I said, what do you mean you black out? I blank out. He said, everything goes blank, and I just start beating the guy up. And I thought, this guy's not even aware. After the fact, when people go, look what you did to this guy would say, oh my God, I did that? Oh man, oh wow, I feel bad. But it didn't change the behavior because he had no way of knowing. This is an NLP thing now. He had no way of knowing how to go in and short circuit that strategy. So if somebody gave him, a lot of trouble, to do something different as opposed to blanking out and hitting the other guy. So, but he wasn't aware that he was blanking out until I asked him the question. He said, I don't know what happened. I said, well, yeah, he said, I blank out. I thought, So oftentimes people aren't aware. And remember, a lot of people are trained or brought up. Okay. I know a guy, I told him about it, I don't know how many times. Let me just say, first of all, he has trouble keeping a girlfriend. Okay. The guy's a great guy, nice looking guy, smart guy, brilliant, he's a good guy. And he'll go, introduce us to a nice new girlfriend or something. And I'll say, wow, maybe this is the one for him. She might last a couple of weeks, a few weeks. And I'm thinking, what could this guy be doing wrong? Well, he would take him for dinner. That's what would happen. And he would eat like he was on a farm. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like this. And I'm like, if he eats like that in front of a girl, she's going to say, really nice meeting you. Thank you so much. Goodbye. But he's probably not even aware that he is now, because I said, sometimes when you eat, you look like, you look like you've been starving for a month. And he says, yeah, I know. I said, you ought to eat with a knife and fork. We call them weapons when we go to a restaurant. If there's no utensils on the table, we say, can we please have some weapons? And they all laugh. Waiters and waitresses laugh at this. But the fact is, he didn't know. So if you have a bad habit, you have a bad habit. Now, any bad habit can be short-circuited once you know how it starts in your mind. It's not that difficult. It's like, people would ask me, I don't see people privately anymore. I used to years and years and years ago. So I get too interested in the business things. And some people would come to me and say, I want to quit smoking. And I say, no, you don't. And they'd say, what? I go, no, you don't. And in their mind, they had to think about that. And they said, well, why not? I said, because you're not a quitter. Okay. I always go to the language, neuro-linguistic programming. It's the meat is in the middle is called linguistic. It's about the language. Very simple. And so the person said to me, he said, well, actually, I'm not a quitter. I said, that's why you don't want to quit. But I bet you wouldn't mind if you could stop smoking. And then how would it be if you had choice later on to have the choice of smoking? So when your friends all light up, you can decide to have a cigarette or not have a cigarette. And if you were in a bar, you could decide to have a cigarette and not have a cigarette. And they said, that'd be great. And I go, cool. They go, what do I have to do first? I said, the first thing is you have to prove to me that you're serious. You have to stop smoking cold turkey for 6 months. You do that, then you come back and see me. And I thought that was absolutely crazy, because if they could stop for 6 months without having a cigarette, then they could stop. And that's true. But they wanted to see me because they still wanted to learn how to have that choice. So there's ways, no matter what goes on, there's always, I have a friend, another friend, his daughter has types of seizures. And what happens then is that, this has been for a long time now, but she's gotten to the point where she knows when it's going to happen. Okay, now whether she's pre-planning it, not purposefully, of course. I don't know anybody who want to purposefully plan to have a seizure of some sort, but she would get a certain kinesthetic before it would happen. Okay, she'd get a certain feeling. And so now she can predict when it's going to happen. And she's learned how to, most of the time, which is pretty good, 80% is pretty damn good, of not having the seizure. Okay, so because that was taught to her, it was a strategy that was taught to her. And when you start to feel this feeling, do this instead. Do something different, change your mind, change the feeling from here to here, do these things. So you can always take the bad habit and switch it. Matter of fact, we use what's called a swish pattern for a lot of habit things. That's a technique that was developed. That's one of Richard's techniques he developed with some modalities and things. So you can always change bad habits. Some things are so automatic for people. Bad habit. Salespeople, a lot of salespeople are afraid to close the sale. They're afraid to ask for the money. They're afraid to close the deal. And I don't know what happens. It could be, depending if I talk to them, of course I could find out. I had one company, the president asked me the vice president asked me one time, can you go see Bob and talk to Bob? What's the problem? Bob's not closing deals. I say, oh, okay. Do you know any reason why? He said, well, I don't know, but he plays a lot of sports. I said, well, maybe that's got something to do with it, So sure enough, Bob comes back while I'm with the vice president. Bob comes back from playing golf with a potential customer. And the vice president says to him, hey, Bob, how you doing? He says, good. He says, close the deal. He says, no, but we're getting close, man. Real close. We played golf today. I let him win, I let him win this time. Tomorrow, we're going to play tennis. And I'm just listening to this. So I go back in the next day, of course, and I'm sitting around with the vice president. I want to find out how this is working. And sure enough, Bob shows up, says, hey, man, how'd you do? Did you play tennis, right? He says, yeah. Did you get the deal? No, but we're really getting closer, boss. We are so close, I could taste it now. 2 days from now, we're going to play racquetball, blah, 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 all this stuff. So found out what Bob was happening was Bob, when he would play the sports, this is great, when he would play the sports, because you got to remember, you're in an interaction with somebody, who's the client? Who's the client? It might seem like an easy thing. But I found out, because I don't play golf, but I went and played golf with them, and I don't play golf. I carried the clubs around and I knocked the ball. Bob would get in such a level of rapport with the customer. Actually, the customer would suck Bob in so well. And Bob wasn't paying attention. Bob lost focus on the mission. That he got in such rapport with the customer, he didn't want to ask for the close. He was aware that he was supposed to close the deal, but he felt so good about the person. He didn't want to ask for the deal because he felt that maybe the guy was going to say no and he would blow the relationship. This is the craziest thing I ever heard of, but it happens a lot. That he got in such a good, the customer got Bob to like him so much, Bob forgot who the client was. Bob became the client. The guy is working Bob. Now, whether he was doing it consciously or not, I don't know. I don't think so. I think the guy was just a very friendly guy and very well, down-to-earth kind of guy and very funny and humorous. Bob's laughing, having a good time. He stuck Bob right in. So these are some of the things that, you really got to pay attention to. You got to stay on the mission. You got to remember to focus. Why are you there? What are you doing? What's your mission? I'm sure a lot of mistakes have been made and a lot of deals have not closed because of something like this, Yeah. I think I saw somebody ask the question about it's an American product and how do you do an American product thing? It's a new product or something. I thought I saw something. I was poking around down here looking at some things. The fact that it's an American product shouldn't mean anything to anybody. I'm going to tell you something. The U.S. has good products, and if they're introducing a new product in your country, whatever it is, okay, now I'm going to say it's got to be a good product because I'm getting back to the beliefs. If you're selling something you don't really believe in it, stop selling it. Go sell something else. Sell something you believe in. Okay. If you don't believe in the product or the service you're selling, don't bother, because that's going to come out. That's going to come across anyway. Somehow it's going to come across. So I'm assuming it's a good product. Okay. I don't care where it comes from. I know I did a contract years and years ago. Okay. Quick story. And so don't let the American thing get in your way too much. I know we're crazy over here and we do a lot of crazy things, but our country's built differently than everybody else's country. So we're kind of used to being a little crazier. This was a deal with a big company. And I was referred to the company by actually another consultant. And what happened was they had brought in a large consulting company. The consulting company said, listen, you got to bring a guy in and train your salespeople how to sell. But that person should know nothing about your product. They should know nothing. They should know about your business, but they should not know anything about your product. They should not know anything about your sales techniques or what you've trained people to do. And they have to be, they literally said, they have to be crazy enough to push these people way over the edge without letting them fall all the way down to the bottom. So the consultant went and Googled all these criteria and he came up with my name. Crazy, willing to take chances, could teach people to sell just about anything, but he didn't truly Google it, but he called me because he knew a friend. And so he set me up with this vice president. So this was going to be only 3 seminars. No, it was going to be one pilot seminar for 40 of their best managers. If they liked it and they saw value in it, he wanted 3 more seminars. Okay? Let me tell you this. By the time I got finished on the first day, he booked 35 and it ended up being close to 40. Now, very simple thing. And he was from Europe, of course, the guy. Calls me up and he says, well, I hear good things about you. The consultant that referred you says a lot of things about you. But I have one concern, one big concern. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, I have to know that this is not the American way of selling. Now, my question to him was, what does that mean? Because I'm an American. I have to tell you, if there's an American way of selling, I don't know what it is. So why don't you describe for me the behaviors that mean to you the American way of selling? He said, you guys are too quick. You're too fast. You want to get to the bottom line really, really fast. And that's not going to work here. It just does not work in Europe. And I said, I got it. I understand. I really do. I got it. It's fantastic. He said, okay, good. I said, listen, you got to decide right now whether you want me or not, because my calendar is filling up. Okay. So if you want to book me, you got to decide right now. I don't got time to waste. And he said, okay, wait, let's get our date books out. And he booked the first one and 3 potentials after that. He said, let's put them in the book in ink. He said, okay. He said, did you write it in ink? Because we're not going to erase these. He said, yeah, they're in ink. I said, good. I said, hey, I thought the American way of selling wasn't going to work with you guys. He laughed. He called me names. He called me SOB. He said, you son of a bitch. How did you do that? I said, I'm not telling you how I did that until the first check clears. Then I'll tell you how I did that. And he laughed again. Now, because some people say, oh, that thing, whatever, comes from the United States, comes from the US. Let me tell you something. We make good stuff here. No, I'm not joking around. Whatever the product is, whatever it is they're selling, we do make products. Okay. So I'd get over the American thing. And if you want to reframe for it, my thing would be, hey, don't you want to be one of the first? If you're having trouble with people, that's from America. So what? What's the big deal about that? What's the big deal about that? People forget something. And even in the worst times, the U.S. has a pretty good running economy. In order for it to crash, right now it's going down. But that's because everybody's locked up in their rooms. Nobody's allowed to leave their house and all these things. You can go shopping for some food, blah, blah, blah. Businesses are closed down. They're starting to open things up. And I'm going to tell you what, I think that if they start opening things up here, other countries are going to follow even faster, because everybody, for some reason, follows the U.S. 2 weeks later. Okay? When we had the big bank problem in 2008, 2007, whatever it was, guess what? Everybody in Europe followed 2 weeks later. So all of a sudden, they all start having the same problem. How does that make sense? I have no idea even how that makes sense. But the fact of the matter is, we got good stuff here. We got good products here. So I'm not sure what the product is that you sell. I don't even know how much it really matters, actually. So if it's really, because I'm looking at this thing again. So if it's, I'm looking at what it is, the person had it in there. It doesn't matter what it is, to tell you the truth, It's like, listen, this is brand new. You haven't even tried it out yet. So if people say, well, I don't know, it came from the United States. My first thing would be, of course it came from the United States. Everything comes from the United States. Attitudes come from the United States. Banking systems are all connected together and all these things. Why don't you be the first to try this product out? Nothing wrong with it. I'm using it myself. If you are, by all means. All of those things. There are a lot of ways of overcoming those things, especially when something is new. I forget how long it took before the first car, the first automobile, the first gasoline automobile anywhere, the fuel automobile. We actually had electric automobiles pretty early. before people would try the ones with the gasoline in them. I forget how many years it took before, when they first started making them, to finding time where people say, oh, I'm going to get one of these things and try it out. So anytime something's new. When NLP was first come out, oh my gosh, John and Richard, they were running small groups for the longest time, fine tuning everything and making sure this was going to work. And they didn't even know what they had. Richard Bandler, I know you're going to have Richard Bandler here in another week or so, or whatever it is.
Yes, on 29th.
29th of May. Okay. He said to me one day, a long time ago, he said to me, it was out in the early 90s, he said, do you know they're doing NLP in New Zealand? I said, yeah. Richard, they're doing NLP all over the world. He said, what? He said, name the country. They're doing NLP, they're doing it in Nigeria. They're doing it all over the place. And he looked at me and he said, when we first started doing NLP, we really did not expect it to go much beyond Santa Cruz, California. I said, well, there you go. And today, a lot of people still have questions about it. Does it work? Well, there's no scientific evidence. No, you know why? Just like in sales, we go by the result. We go by the result. We don't care why somebody's got a problem. We want to know how they have the problem in their head so that we can make the adjustments in there. Real simple. We got to throw certain switches. Teach them to throw certain switches in their brain, basically. That's a metaphor, of course. They don't have switches in their head so that they don't have the problem. It's real simple. It's not that complicated. It never was. And you can do it with language. You don't even have to ask them what the some modalities are and all these things. People ask me, how do you use NLP in business? I use it very well in business. I learned years and years ago, and I told you this in the very beginning. If you have a good attitude going in, they're going to want to pay attention to you, right? And I don't twist people's arms. I'm not an arm twister. Never was. I never said, well, come on, really? Never did that. No, you got to do this. Never did that. It's just not for me, and it's not my style. So you get a good attitude. You're excited about what you're doing. People will want to be a part of it. It's that simple. There are a lot of good things about the language patterns, asking good questions instead of, questions that aren't really relevant to what you're doing, things like that. You really want to learn to ask really good, solid questions too. So you can get the responses or the information you want. That's all important. That's all important. So I highly recommend people learn how to ask good questions. That's really important.
What can we expect it on May 29 with Richard Bandler's Masterclass?
I got to tell you, first of all, let me tell you, I've been with Richard now for 30, I don't know, I lost track, over 35 years. I've been co-training with Richard since early 90s, but I was also doing other things for him. I was always behind the scenes, especially from the early middle 80s up. I was behind the scenes. People wouldn't even remember who I am, actually. Richard's great. He is really, he's a genius. I don't know, he's a genius to say, can he do, he's actually a mathematician, so I can't even use that as an example, saying, well, he could run these problems in his head and figure them out real fast. That's not even a good example. You would have good questions. If you have good questions for Richard, he will light your candles. He will enlighten you in ways you never thought were possible. I'm still in awe sometimes. I sit in the back of the class most of the time. When I'm in London, for example, I'm in the seminar room, in the back of the room. I still have my laptop. I might be checking emails, but I'm really paying attention to what he's doing because I know there's going to be something new popping up just about every time. And when I'm in Orlando, I'm in the room some of the time with him because I really want to find out what else he's going to be doing that's different, because people are so different. Our brains work pretty much the same, but we're different so subjectively. The way you think about A and the way I think about A, we're going to be different. I'm going to tell you that. We're going to be different how we think about it here. And based on all of that, he comes up with a solution almost every single time. I am amazed. I'm actually amazed. As many times as I've seen him, in some of the seminars we do, we teach people how to do the phobia thing, get rid of the fears and stuff. Just happen to, be more resourceful, which is really the point. And we bring in these big snakes and these big tarantula spider things. And there was a woman this time, I've seen this more than once, but this one, I really thought she was going to run out the room. I thought we had a runner. But she raised her hand to begin with. And said, yeah, I'm afraid. He said, well, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to come up here. She said, I'm not coming up there. And I'm like, what the hell did you raise your hand for? Unless that was your unconscious volunteering. I don't know. Probably something like that. Anyway, and she literally must have spent, which is a long time, 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, arguing with Richard, telling him, I'm not coming up there. And guess what? She ended up there. She ended up in that chair, still scared as all hell, okay? Until he went, close your eyes, yak, 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 bam, you're all done, great. And then she said, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then he said, okay, bring out the snake. And by the way, this is not a little baby snake. This is like a 10-foot boa constrictor thing. These are big, big snakes. They're not nasty snakes either, by the way. They're not poisonous. They're probably not going to bite you, you know, things like this. But when she first saw the snake, she went, well, hold on a second. And Richard was smart. He said, okay, hold on, put the snake back. He did a little more work with her, and she went, okay, I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Now, he might have done another couple of things with her, I don't know. But you know what? She ended up wrapping that snake all around her by the time he was finished with her. Okay? Now, this sounds like, oh my gosh, well, it's easy enough. Yeah, no, it is easy enough. Richard is very generous. He truly loves helping people. If he gets good questions, he'll answer the questions, and he'll give out good solutions. As a matter of fact, he'll add on to that. That's Richard. I mean, that's my experience of Richard for years and years and years. Now, if somebody wants to be act like a turkey and just ask stupid questions, Richard's going to give back a stupid answer. But that's because he figures, listen, if you ask really good questions, what are you wasting my time for? He's brilliant. He really is brilliant, and he's such a. We were in Germany, and this was two quick ones, and this is about Richard. And my son was with us. My son was about 9 years old. We took him to Germany, Austria, and the UK on doing training. We took him out of school for 2 months. So he got out of school for 2 months, but he had to do his homework, and he had to bring his books with him and carry his homework and everything. We got him a tutor, a couple of tutors, women, girls like that. He was 9. And Richard said, okay, you're going to take over now. I said, sure. I went to the front of the room. I started doing something, and I don't see Richard. That's okay. I figured he went upstairs, do it. He doesn't always sit in the room when I'm teaching, but I don't see my son. And I'm saying to I said to my wife, Kathleen, I said, mouthing the words anyway, because I was teaching. I gave the class an exercise. And I mouthed to the back of the room and said to my wife, I said, John, my son's name is John Sebastian. And she said, under the table with Richard. What? He was under the table with Richard. And I thought, oh, I got to find out what's going on here. So I went to the back of the room while people were doing the exercise, or maybe it was a coffee break. I picked up the tablecloth like this, and I said, what you guys doing? Rich says, put that down, put that away. We're doing math here. He was teaching my son math because my son didn't like mathematics. And Richard was showing him all the shortcuts to do mathematics, so that when he went back to school, he did much better in mathematics. That's Richard. Then they do something. Richard said, can I take your son out? I want to show him a little around. We were in Munich. I said, yeah, go ahead, have a good time. He comes back. And he says, I'm going to be upstairs we had a big suite where we could all join in and, meet, whatever. So I'm going to be upstairs with John. I said, okay. And I said, sure, absolutely. They were up there for a couple of hours. And then he comes back down, and I'm teaching. And he says, I'll be right back, okay? I'm John with me. We're going to go back to the store, get something. Is that okay? And I said, sure, absolutely. Go ahead, take John. So they go away. They come back. I don't see them come back. They just went straight to the room. And I don't see where my son is. Or Richard. No big deal. But I'm just wondering. Well, they've been gone for a long time. They went out to the store again. What did they buy now? And so I said to my wife, I said, here's John. She said, he's upstairs with Richard. I said, oh, it's been a while. Is everything okay? I mean, what did they buy? She goes, I don't know. So that'd be all right. I said, okay. So I finished up the class. I go upstairs, knock on the door. Richard goes, come on in. Be careful. Just be careful when you walk in here. Be careful when you walk in. Yeah, I opened up the door. He went out and bought John trains, German trains. And they've got these trains. They set up all the trains and the tracks and everything on the floor. But that wasn't enough. I said, what'd you go back to the store for? He said, well, John said these trains didn't look like the trains in New York. So I had to go get a miniature airbrushing paint set so we could paint some of the trains with graffiti. And they're on the floor going, painting these trains. That's Richard. Okay. He's a great guy. He really is really great guy. You're going to love him. I mean, if you don't listen, if you don't take the chance to see him, you know, I know Portuguese, you know, a lot of people don't speak good, you know, very much English. Some people don't speak any English. And so therefore they might not come to the US to see him, or they're not going to go see him live in London, you know, whatever. Then this is a good chance to see him. Really is. You know, he's going to be live. He's going to be live. He's going to be with you for a couple of hours, and he's going to be taking questions and answering the questions. So I would not miss the opportunity. I'm sorry. First chance I had to see Richard, which was way back in the early 80s, I took it. You know, I was working in a company at the time, and he was coming in to do a small program. It was limited to 25, no more than 25 people. And I was in my practitioner seminar, and you know, the people were bringing him in. They said, "Oh, Richard's going to be here. It's limited to 25 people." And it was going to be like $500, which was a lot of money back then. I'm working in the company. I had a low-level supervisor job. You know, I wasn't making big money. And I signed up. I just signed up. And I told people in the class, "Oh, I'm going to see Richard Bandler." They go, "Are you crazy?" I go, "Why? What do you mean crazy?" They go, "That guy's nuts." I thought, "Oh, that's not so bad." "What do you mean?" They said, people would tell me this. They go, "If you don't do what he tells you to do, he'll hit you with a chair." I said, "Well, he better be fast and he better be good, because I'll hit him back with a bigger chair." You know, that was my attitude. So I went to see him, and I thought, "Oh, this guy's great. This guy's great." Was he pushing people? Yeah, he was pushing them to change. And once they changed, they went, "Oh, thank you so much, Rich. I really needed that." It was great. The guys, I don't even know how to describe him. While we were in that 3-day seminar, he had somebody bring in a massage table. And a guy came into that seminar from, I believe it was Colorado. And he was in a wheelchair, and he was all, you know, scrunched up. And for 3 days, while Richard was talking to us and teaching us some things, he had this guy on his massage table working this guy, doing massage and doing different things, twisting him around and all this stuff like that. That guy walked out of the room after 3 days on crutches. And I just sat there as the guy walked. I almost cried. I just said, "This is amazing." And he's just that kind of guy. You got to see him. I'm sorry. You just got to see him. Okay? He's a good friend of mine. So I'm going to talk really well about him. But you know what? It's the truth. So.
Thank you, John, for this feedback. And thank you to be with us here on this evening here in Portugal, in US, probably afternoon. And I want to thank you, all of you, to be here with John and with all of us, sharing these nice opportunities to change, because we have to change. We have to do something and to pass to action now and start to do new things to speed up our brain. Thank you.
Plan your
John.
getaways. Plan your getaways. For when this thing's finally over, plan your getaways, man. Start planning and plotting it now, man. Get your plans ready to kick into action. You can start now. I keep telling people, do these small little things on the YouTube. I mean, on the Zoom things. You know, talk to your customers. You know, tune them up, all the stuff, get them ready. Blah blah blah. You know, stay in their presence. Stay in their presence. Get ready to get out and go for it. That's really what it's about now. I want to thank him. Miguel. You've been great. Been knowing you for a long time. Miguel, by the way, this guy's great. If you don't know who he is and you haven't done any work, I'm going to put a plug in for you. Is that okay?
Yes.
That'll be okay. This is a great guy. You know why? He does what he says he's going to do. All right? And that's not a joke. He's a good guy. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do something. He's one of the most committed guys I know. And he's going to make sure that that he's going to finish the job. When it comes time to making sure that the result is there, he's going to make sure the result is there. So if you haven't gotten to work with Miguel just yet, I'm going to tell you to go work with Miguel. All right? He's really good. Really, really, really good.
Thank you.
He's excellent. He's excellent at what he does. I'm going to stop right there, or I'm going to start saying too many things.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
So, thank you to all to be here, and I hope to see you. I know that you will be there on the 29 with Richard Bandler. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Go see Richard.